Aristeas in 7 years. Gathering the heat to himself, in one thermic hazard, he took himself out, to catch up with the tree, the river, the forms of alien vantage. 1. And hence the first way, by theft into the upper world, a natural development from the mixed economy in the drier or bleaker regions where more movement was necessary, and thus the flood loan, the deposit, borrowed for the removal. Call it inland. His nose filled with steam and his brief cries. Aristeas took up, it seems, with the singular as the larch tree, the Greek sufficient for that, from Marmara, and sprang with that double twist into the middle world, and thence took flight over the Scythian hordes and to the Hyperborean, touch of the north wind, carrying with him Apollo. Song his transport, but this divine insistence, the pastoral clan, sheep, elk, the wild deer. In each case the presence in embryo, God of the shepherd, and fixed in the movement of flock. Rung over the real tracts. If he was frozen like the felted eagle of Pazyryk, he too had the impossible lower twist, the spring into the middle, the air. From here comes the north wind, the remote animal, gold. How did he, do we, know or trust this? Following the raven and sniffing hemp as the other air, it was himself as the singular that he knew and could outlast in the long walk by the underground sea, where he was as the singular location so completely portable that with the merest black wings he could survey the stones and rills in their complete mountain courses. 2. In name, the displacement, Scythic. And his songs were invocations in no frenzy of spirit, but clear and spirituous tones from the pure base of his mind. He heard the small currents in the air, and they were truly his aid. In breath he could speak out into the northern air, and the phrasing curved from his mouth and nose into the cold mountain levels. It was the professed Apollo, free of the festive line, powdered with light snow. And looking down then, it is no outlay to be seen in the forests or scattered rising of ground. No cheap cigarettes, nothing with the god in this climate is free of duty. Moss, wormwood as the cold star, the dwarf Siberian pine as from the morainal deposits of the last deglaciation. Down there, instead, the long flowing hair of great herds of sheep and cattle, the drivers of these, their feet more richly thickened in use than any slant of their mongoloid face, or long, ruched garments. With his staff, the larch pole, that again the singular and one axis of the errant world. Prior to the pattern of settlement, then, which is the passing flocks fixed into wherever they happened to stop, the spirit demanded the Orphic metaphor, 3, as fact, that they did migrate, and the spirit excursion was no more than the need and will of the flesh. The term, as has been pointed out, is bone, the flesh burned or rotted off, but the branch calcined like what it was, like that, as itself, the skeleton of the possible in a heap and covered with stones or a barrow. Leaving the flesh vacant then, in a fuller's shop, Aristeas removed himself for 7 years into the steppes, preparing his skeleton and the song of his departure. His flesh, anyway, touched by the invading Cimmerian twilight, ruinous as the old woman's prophecy. And who he was took the collection of 7 years to thin out, to the fume laid across where he went. Direction north, for no longer settled, but settled now into length. He wore that as risk. The garment of birds' feathers, while he watched the crows fighting the owls with the curling tongues of flame proper to the archaic hillside, as he was himself more than this. The spread is more, the vantage is singular, as the clan is without centre. Each where, as the extent of day determines, where the sky holds, the brightness dependent on that. And Apollo is in any case seasonal, the divine, used only of a particular god, never as a general term. The Hyperborean paradise was likewise no general term, but the mythic duration of spirit, into the bone laid out in patterns on the ground. The skulls are sent on hunting journeys, the footprints alongside. That towards which they journey, they turn them towards, so that they will follow behind. From the fuller's shop, as from the camp of the seal hunter, 5. Some part of the bone must be twisted, and must twist, as the stages of Cimmerian wandering. Viz. 1. 1800 to 13th century BC, north of the Caucasus, then 2. 13th to 8th centuries, invaded by the Scythians and deflected southwards and to the west, and 3. After that, once more displaced, 8th century to maybe 500 BC, the invasion of Asia Minor. Ruinous. As any settled and complacent fixture of the shoreline would regard the movement of pressure irreducible by trade or bribery. Hence the need to catch up as a response to cheap money, and how all that huddle could be drawn out into the tenuous upper reach, the fine chatter of small birds under the head of the sky. Sub divo columine, on the western slope of the Urals, and the scatter of lightning, now out of doors and into the eagle span. 6. The true condition of bone, which is no more singular or settled, or the entitled guardian even, but the land of the dead. Why are they lost? Why do they always wander? As if seeking their end and drawing after them the trail and fume of burning hemp. Or they are not lost, but passing. If thoughtless abandonment to the moment were really a blessing, I had actually been in the land of the blessed. But it was not blessing, rather a fact so hard won that only the twist in middle air would do it anyway. So even he be wise, or with any recourse to the darkness of his tent. The sequence of issue is no more than this. Apollo's price, staff leaning into the ground and out through the smoke hole. It is the spirit which dies as the figure of change, which is the myth and fact of extent, which thus does start from Marmara or Aklavik, right out of the air. No one harms these people. They are scared and have no weapons. They sit or pass in the form of divine song. They are free in the apt form of displacement. They change their shape, being of the essence as a figure of extent, which, for the power in rhyme, 7, is gold, in this northern clime, which the Greeks so held to themselves, and which in the steppe was no more than the royal figment. This movement was of course cruel beyond belief, as this was the risk Aristeas took with him. The conquests were for the motive of sway, involving massive slaughter as the obverse politics of claim, that is, slaves and animals, life and not value. The Western Sarmatian tribes lived side by side, not in a loose tribal configuration, but had been welded into an organized imperium under the leadership of one royal tribe. Royalty as plural. Hence the calendar as taking of life, which left gold as the side issue, pure figure. Guarded by the griffins, which lived close to the mines, the gold reposed as the divine brilliance, petrology of the sea air, so far from the shore. The beasts dug the metal out with their eagle beaks, rending in the cruel frost of that earth. And yet they were the guardians, the figure of flight and heat, and the northern twist of the axis. His name was Aristeas, absent for these 7 years. We should pay them, or steal. It is no more than the question they ask.